Hi, it's Christy of So to Speak, and welcome back to the Closet series. We are rounding out our three-part mini-series on heart-centered leadership with Rachel Daughtry of the Compassion Coalition. Rachel is the Director of Agency Relations at the Compassion Coalition, which is based right here in Utica, New York, and we are so grateful and inspired that they call Utica home. It's just, we're so psyched to be able to have an organization like that here in Utica, because it just is a reminder that we all need on a regular basis to be compassionate, which is often misunderstood, because compassion is not just being positive and Pollyanna. It's actually quite the opposite. Compassion is choosing to be courageous and look suffering in the face, to look right at it, and then to do something about it. It's not to look away. It's not to put a Band-Aid on it. It's to see where there's suffering happening and to change it. And so we could not be more relieved and enlightened by Rachel Daughtry and the entire team at the Compassion Coalition. Rachel is so full of passion and heart for what she does and what the Compassion Coalition is all about in their mission. She just is so inspiring. And I hope that what you receive from our conversation is for you to be inspired to go back into your corner of the world and to make a change for the better. We all need it so desperately right now. And if you have missed the previous guests in the mini-series, please go back, check those out. They're equally inspiring and equally based in passion, love, humanity, humility, and heart. So Peter McGinnis was our first guest, the President and Chief Operating Officer at Chobani, and Shelley Callahan, the Executive Director of the center, formerly known as the Refugee Center of Utica, was our second guest. But for now, please sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Rachel Daughtry of the Compassion Coalition. I hope people reach out to you from other parts of the country, because I just feel like you guys all three are really separately, but then also together, you're exemplary of just what it takes. This is just three companies, three organizations. Yes, Chobani is a big organization, big company, but there's tons of them all over the place. And if everybody just got together in these small, just imagine the magnitude of what can happen.
Mm-hmm. That's what we always say too. Like when Peter came, it was so nice because we meet with companies all the time. You know, we're in New York City constantly, not during COVID, but we're there a lot. And when he showed up, you just had this draw to him because we're so like-minded. And Shelley, I mean, I love Shelley. Shelley is fantastic. And our refugee center, now it's called just the center. It really is a model for our nation. It's incredible. So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
So I just want you to fill people in on the Compassion Coalition, just how it came to be. And it's been around for over 20 years, right?
Yeah. So we're talking about heart-centered leadership, right? And so the way that it was founded is genuinely on heart-centered leadership. And so my dad started it, I think we're going to be 22 in January. But he was flying out of town. He's been a pastor for 40 years. And he picked up our local paper, the Utica OD. And on the front page of the paper was a picture of our local food pantries. And it was someone reaching for the last can of food, because the year that we had started, we had a series of really bad winters. And there was no food left. So we do not have a major food bank in Utica. It goes Albany and Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, but we do not have one. And so we're a large city to not have a food bank. And so my dad saw this picture and he just automatically felt this sense of, you know, I need to do something about this. And so everybody laughed at him. You know, I was just finishing high school and he came back from being overseas and he's like, I'm going to start a warehouse and we're going to feed people. You know, and everybody was kind of like, oh, okay, all right. And the one thing about my dad is he is a visionary person. And so when he says something, he means it. Like he gets stuck on something, he's going to do it. My grandfather was a produce distributor. My two great uncles owned grocery stores. And so automatically he's like, this can't be hard to do. We're going to do it. Sure enough, within a few months, he had a warehouse and he had the product. And he automatically started serving organizations within our communities, and it started to grow from that. Well, after the first year, a lot of people who don't work in the nonprofit industry don't realize that, you know, the food is free, right? That you're picking up, but the trucking's not free. The labor's not free. The forklift to unload those trucks is not free. And all of a sudden we're serving, you know, hundreds of agencies, and it was up to like 120 agencies in central New York within the first year, but he was $150,000 in debt. And he said, this is not sustainable. There has to be another way, because I'm not going to continually ask the same people for money every year. And sure enough, the next year he started Bargain Grocer. So we are one and the same. So Bargain Grocer is our nonprofit grocery store. We're 13,000 square feet. We did not start that way. We started at 1,200 square feet. That is in a food desert and brings food accessibility. From that grocery store, Compassion Coalition has been self-sustaining for we're going to go on 22 years. And we give more than $20 million away to our communities.
So just like, you're like blowing my mind right now with so much that you're saying. I'm like, wait a second. How are you self-sustaining? Can you walk us through that? Because for anybody, I mean, of course, you're the third part. You're rounding out the 3-part series of heart-centered leadership. But one of the reasons I really was so excited to have you on too is because this is such a scalable model.
Yeah.
And anybody who's watching this all over the country, like just to give them just a glimpse. And of course they can reach out to you on Facebook and stuff to get more information, but how are you self-sustainable? Can you walk us through how that works?
So we have a full blown grocery store. We have a 13,000 square foot nonprofit grocery store. Anybody can shop in our grocery store, right? So the money that is made there, 100% of that money goes right into not just, I mean, we're paying our staff, of course, but it goes into paying the trucking costs, the utilities, all of our overhead is covered by that. So we're allowed, I shouldn't say we're allowed, we're able to do things that no one else can. That was another part of our mission, was that my dad didn't want to be just stuck. He didn't want to be just another piece of the puzzle. He wanted to be able to serve where it was needed, when it was needed, and how it was needed. A lot of times what you'll find with nonprofits is that everybody is grant funded, right? When you start to get into grants, you don't realize that they're very specific. And so, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. You can get a food grant, right? But again, it doesn't pay for the shipping costs. It only pays for that food. So you have to find the extra money to pay for all the other pieces. Whereas we are self-sustaining because of this grocery store. We are able to step in and help when we are needed because we have the funding to do so. So the model is scalable, it's sustainable. We actually have people, gosh, I would say twice a month that contact us and say, how can we bring you to our community? And even during COVID, you know, I can't believe the amount of people who have reached out, because I'm sure that I loved Peter's talk the other day. I'm going to tell you that. And I can't wait to hear Shelley's. But the one thing that we've really realized is that during COVID, this food insecurity piece has really been brought to light, right? And so working families, all of a sudden, were just, you know, without any funding at all. They're waiting for unemployment. They didn't know how they were going to feed their kids. You know, they didn't know how they were going to serve them dinner, lunch, breakfast, and have them home. And the beautiful thing about our store is we sell everything at reasonable prices, because we believe that everyone should have access to healthy, affordable food.
Which is it's such a natural link to Chobani. That's such a huge part of them too.
Yes.
Which just makes so much sense about you guys having that collaboration. So can you just speak to how that started? We'll start with Chobani and then we'll go to the center, but just how it started with you guys having this fantastic collaboration.
Chobani has always been in our backyard. Hamdi was here for many years, and they've always been very benevolent. I mean, and from firsthand experience, just the little things that they do to, just being aware of what's within their community. And so we had heard about Peter, we had heard about how amazing he was, but we had never met him. And so just 4 weeks ago, we finally connected. He came down, and right away, it was just like I said, when we were talking earlier, it was an instant connection. It was just a natural thing for us because our hearts are so aligned in doing the work that we're both doing. And so he immediately got us on the phone with his team, and we are so excited. We're going to start to collaborate. Our first step is going to actually be Thanksgiving. So
cool.
yeah, so this is a little tidbit of information that nobody really knows yet because I just got off the phone with them a few days ago. Every year we do about 800 Thanksgiving baskets and meals. And so this year, Chobani is going to give every family who is receiving those cases of yogurt to go with it. So we're going to do their limited edition flavors. We're really excited about that. And so from there, it's going to progress into some amazing things in 2021.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love hearing it. It's such a smooth, it just makes so much sense, and it's such a smooth collaboration, which is also just speaks volumes to just kind of zooming out to the macro level of it's not hard to do, so anybody who's watching this, like, it's not hard to merge the sectors together and to work together to literally like, I speak so big, I get super passionate about it, but I don't think that it's I don't think I'm over dramatizing it. Like, you're literally healing the world in your own way, and it's huge. It's just so huge.
I think that's a perfect point, because we always say, let's just get it done, right? If we're not going to do it, who is? So let's just, whatever we need to do, let's get that done, because it's not a big deal. And I feel like we get in our own way a lot of times, right? Even companies, when we meet with companies, we'll sit down and we'll start talking about the logistics piece, and you just have to kind of simplify it and say, it's really not that hard. This is what we want to do. We want to give access to food. And by giving that access to food, oh, hey, you're going to help 60 schools in the process, obtain school supplies through our teacher resource center. Oh, and you're also going to help give, $500,000 away in mattresses. So it's a really amazing thing. And it isn't that difficult. We complicate things as humans, right?
We do complicate things. And I also feel like it's so easy to feel like, oh, this is one more thing to add. And you might feel bad saying this because that it's something good that you'd be doing, but you're like, it's one more thing to add. I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. I'm guessing, I don't know this firsthand because you're like in it with Chobani and with the center, which we're going to talk about Shelly too in a second. I feel like it would be so surprising that when you do have this collaboration, it's like a natural refuel. Like you're contributing back to the world, so you actually get more energized. Like, of course, there might be moments of exhaustion, but I feel like there's like a natural refuel that happens from you contributing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up, because there are times, and I think this goes along with this heart-centered leadership. You work so hard to do these things because you felt led to do them, right? Like, I know deep down inside what I'm supposed to do, what my dream is, what my vision is for this community, and what we want to see happen. And sometimes you get discouraged because people will say to you, like, what are you crazy? Like, why would you do that? Why would you get involved with this specific group or that specific group, or in this arena that you're not usually involved in? And then you start to collaborate with a Shelly or a Peter, and you see, no, my gut was right. I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is the path that we're supposed to be on.
Yes. And you're also making me want to, like, shamelessly plug, before Heart-Centered Leadership, I had an intuitive on, and she talks all about gut. And it's like, yes, follow your gut. Follow your gut. I heard this great, I'm going to just paraphrase it, but it was like, your heart, your gut, right? They know what, and your head knows how.
Yes.
So start here and then get logical of like how you can make it work. But we so often go here first,
Mhm.
and then we could be saving ourselves so much more time because it's scarier to go with your gut, especially when
Oh,
logically
yeah.
it may not make sense. So I love you saying that. And you had also talked about your teacher resource center. So
Mhm.
before we shift to Shelly, I just would love for you
Yeah.
just elaborate on that. You guys are
So
doing so much stuff. It's so
we
exciting.
do.
Talk.
I actually was meeting with our graphic designer earlier before this meeting. And I said to her, I said, I need to just sit down on a Friday and take a time out and just document everything that we do, because we don't have a normal day at Compassion. You know, every day we're doing something. But the Teacher Resource Center, out of any program that I've created, you know, that over the last few years, this is near and dear to my heart. This is my baby. Um, you know, I only came on, I think it's going to be 6 years in January. And, you know, we've always been very involved in our community, but I just felt like we were missing the mark. We were missing, you know, what we were supposed to be doing within the schools. So we would do these big backpack giveaways in downtown Utica or different areas. And we do them in the summer. And then we'd talk to the teachers and they'd say they never made them to the schools. Either they were lost or something happened, you know. And so I said, what, we're doing this all wrong. Who knows their students more than the teachers who see them every day? Who can preserve the dignity of these students who are coming in than the teachers who are seeing them every day with the same clothes, without crayons, without pencils? There's no reason that we should be stopping lessons to give a child something that they don't have and embarrass them, right? And so it was a natural progression. We turned a section of our warehouse into our store. And we started, because of our grocery store, we were able to purchase products from huge companies, Crayola, Bombas socks, UV supply brands, Mead notebooks, right? And all of a sudden it blew up from just Utica schools to we are now serving 60 schools. The schools have to be 70% or higher free or reduced lunch, which a lot of schools in our area are. And just from this August, so because of COVID, you know, everything's been kind of crazy, but just August to September, we served over 300 teachers. And that's nothing.
Rachel, it's insane.
Every teacher, Christy, it's incredible, like to see the teachers come in, because I don't think a lot of people realize teachers are spending their own money.
100%.
And if you are working in a district that is already, you know, in need, you don't have a budget. And so they're going out, and the national average is $492. But if you were to speak with a local teacher, they're buying snacks, they're buying clothing, they're buying school supplies. And so we wanted to be able to do something that, you know, changed this for them. And it really is, I feel like this is the program that has hit that mark for us.
It's so incredible. And how did you expand to 60 schools?
I started slow. This was another thing. Like I knew that we could go, you know, even bigger than that, but I did not want to fall on my face. And this is another like, am I doing this too fast?
Sure.
Do I need to slow down a little? We started with Utica. So in Utica, I mean, we have 11 schools, right? So elementary to high school, we have 11 schools. And then from there, we just started to expand. So now we're all the way out to Canastota. My dream genuinely is to have this Albany and Syracuse as well.
Oh, you're well on your way, my dear.
I'm trying.
Like, and slow and steady wins a race, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never hear about these things taking off straight out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not sustainable. And you're obviously doing something right. You obviously know what you're doing. Oh, you know what was one thing I wanted to ask you? So about the grocery store, I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad to hear what you said, because I had a moment where I was like, my gut feeling was, I want to shop there because I look at it as a donation to support the Compassion Coalition.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, because I don't want to take food away from people. Like, I'm very grateful, very fortunate
Mm-hmm.
that I can buy food. So I was like, I don't want to take food away from people. So I had this moment. So just to have you say it again very clearly,
Mm-hmm.
it is helping if we can buy food at Price Chopper or whatever. It still is helping you guys by donating to the forklifts and to all of the other resources and supplies needed to keep you guys running.
Yeah. The number one thing we tell people all the time is, if you really want to get involved, shop with us. By all means. You are not, when I tell you, we are getting tractor trailers almost every single day of the week. So we have more than enough. So much so that we have to give to pig farmers at the end of every week, right? Because we don't want to see that go into a landfill. And so we want people to shop with us. We want you to be able to come in. And we actually just put up signs outside of our store. If you go down the arterial, you'll see we put open to the public, because here, and we have a small community, and so people will say that to their siblings or their cousins, you can't shop there, it's only for people in need. It's not.
It's helping. Like, if we shop there, it's helping. And it's such a beautiful, and because I've only been there 1 or 2 times, because I had that moment, like, ugh. So I love you clarifying that to everybody who's listening. It makes sense. It really was like it makes sense, but I also love the vibe inside. I love the people that work there. It's just, you got such a great thing going. And then you were saying that, like, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I love that you brought up that point too, is a lot of people who will read about us, or they'll hear about us, they'll watch me on Facebook Live, they've never been in the store. And so when they come in, it's like this aha moment where they're like, oh my God, this doesn't look like, a low-cost grocery store. And we did that on purpose. We want every single person, I don't care if you have $1 million or $1 in your pocket, we want everyone to feel welcome in our store. And so the one thing that they'll come in and say, oh my gosh, it looks like a Trader Joe's in here, or Whole Foods.
Totally.
We want people to feel the atmosphere.
Yeah. I got a Trader Joe's vibe, like, straight out of the gate.
We love
from like the outside.
Mm-hmm.
From the outside, you have that feel.
The former president of Trader Joe's, Doug Rao, started a store like ours in Boston. It's called Daily Table, and it's fantastic. And so we have, really been really great getting to know them. He's come up here, and so the first time that I met him, he just looked like Mr. Trader Joe. And so he came up, and I was like in awe.
What does that mean? What does Mr. Trader Joe look like?
He had a Hawaiian shirt on, and he is just larger than life. He's got to be like over 6'3", and he walked in, and I'm like, can I hug you? Because I'm Trader Joe's,
So you were saying that because, if I heard you correctly, you were saying that because of the grocery store, that led you to be able to do the warehouse for the teachers, which then led you to be open and create these relationships to get furniture, which I believe is the connector to the center.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of connections there. So
yeah.
So Shelly and Tracy, I met them, my gosh, probably 5 years ago now. We went and met with them, and I just have loved them from the day that I met them. In our store, we hire people with barriers to employment. And so that could be a language barrier, that could be, a past offense, that could be someone coming out of substance abuse or mental health, or they're continuing to work on themselves. And so we hire, I think as of December of last year, we had 11 languages spoken on our staff, and we have a very small staff.
Wow.
And so, we want to be as involved in our community and the evolution of our community as we can, right? And one of the biggest pieces of that is the center. We love that at Proctor High School, there's 40 languages spoken, at least the last time I checked. So don't fact check me on that, but last I checked, there's 40 languages spoken. And so anything that we can do to make our new neighbors feel welcome, we want to do that. So whether it be furniture, whether it be toiletries, whether it be, sending over socks or jackets, Legos for new kids that are coming in who have nothing, backpacks, we want to be involved in that. And it's a phenomenal thing. We've sent everything from poor Shelly and Tracy. At one point, I sent them a whole pallet of umbrellas. And she said, we're walking over boxes, in different offices because there was so much stuff there. But from there, it's just been a natural progression of collaborations, whether it be World Refugee Day or, hiring people that wouldn't be able to find work other places. It's a phenomenal relationship, and I so appreciate them. I told them recently that I feel like I have not been able to give as much as they've been able to give to me lately. And so I need to change that when COVID is done, because I've had to call them a lot lately for whether it be translation services or, just help with legal issues for our staff. But I love that they are there, and they are a phenomenal resource to our community.
And I have to say, there's so many people that are in our community who they're familiar with the Compassion Coalition. They just are not as, it's just not as much on their radar. So do you know why that is?
I think, it's a great question. And I went to a conference about 3 years ago, and somebody said to me, one of the keynote speakers, I was talking to her, and she said to me, she goes, honey, she goes, when people tell you that you're the best kept secret in your city, don't take that as a compliment. And I started to laugh, I thought she was joking. She goes, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
She said, because everyone should know about what you're doing.
Totally.
And the reason that is because we've never been about showcasing. We're more about doing. Does that make sense? I never want to show up to deliver a mattress to a child who's been sleeping on the floor and then put a camera in their face and say, tell me how I changed your life today.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, as a nonprofit, I know that we need to, showcase what we're doing. But at the same time, I have a little bit of a pause in figuring out how to do that. Now, we've gotten really good at it in the last 5 years, I would say, that we are, starting to gain momentum and more people are hearing about what we're doing. But that's been a real topic of conversation. Even today, we were talking about it and how to highlight it.
Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive, right? Like, so you don't have to be exploitative.
Right.
And you also don't have to be like, we're only, because neither one is obviously not ethical from your standpoint. And I think most people's standpoints. And the other one is it's not going to help sustain you guys. So clearly you're doing something right because you're doing a great job, but just in regards to get the word out more. So I'm hoping that this conversation is maybe a big prompt in the right direction in regards to exposure.
Yeah, for sure. No, and absolutely. I mean, we even talk about doing almost talking in the third person, and telling these stories. I'm so thankful though. We have customers in the store that will write me testimonials. And if you ever go to our YouTube page for Bargain Grocer, you'll see a testimonial that came in from a woman who shops in our store that she let us, put to video. And it literally is incredible, to know that the work that we're doing, is changing lives.
Yeah. And that makes sense that would be the way that you go about. I mean, it's firsthand news, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just hearing straight from the horse's mouth, if that's the phrase. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to pull the heartstrings too, but will make people want to give from a place. It's not just the purse strings, right? So people want to know, I believe the vast majority of the people and the people who are very much involved with Compassion Coalition, with Chobani, with the center, there's a through line of the type of person who will be connected to all three of you guys. And they really care about having a similar value system. They're conscious consumers. They're brand ambassadors. You know what I mean? They want to promote for you guys because they believe in what you're doing. And I just think it's incredible.
Yeah. No, I think absolutely.
I'd love to also hear just what's your definition of what heart-centered leadership means?
I was thinking about this last night, and I believe it's awareness. I believe it's empathy. It's something that I believe that it's contagious. Heartfelt leaders, people think that they're pushovers, right? That's a lot of times you hear, oh, they're a heartfelt leader. No, you have to take time to really also re-energize yourself and to take time out for yourself and that self-care piece.
Shelly and I talked, so you're leading to a lot of things that Shelly and I talked about in regards to that fine line. There's so many wonderful, incredible, and rich things about being a heart-centered leader and heartfelt leader. I love how you're saying that. Then there's that boundary that's needed, right? And so Shelly and I talked about the importance of self-care, but beyond that, self-care gets thrown around so much, also that soul care. Do you have any best practices for any fellow heart-centered and or people who want to become more heart-centered, but maybe there is that fear of am I going to get in over my head? And then what are some best practices to be able to re-engage and re-energize yourself?
Well, I think that like when we were talking about the fine line piece, my therapist always says to me, I have a phenomenal therapist, and she always says, stay in your lane, right? Stay in your lane. You know what you do well. You know what you can handle. Stay in your lane. It's so funny because a lot of people, especially, in the nonprofit world, even the corporate world, they want to be able to have their hand in everything. They don't want to say no. Mm-hmm. So it really kind of, you have to realize, like, you know what? I can do this. I can. I know that I can. Should I? No, I should not. This is my way of staying in my lane. Mm-hmm. The other thing is for me personally, I had to start saying no more, because, it's really hard when you work in this field, and I'm sure that Shelley and even Peter could give you some examples, but at one point I felt like my phone was going off 24/7, but it was never in regards to me person. It was, hey, can you deliver, an emergency bed at 5:00 on a Friday to this family who has nothing, when I was already gone or getting my kids. Hey, can you donate this to my kid's school? Hey, can you do this? And for me, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've already given out so much. I'm at a 0 right now. And so I've had to take a step back and say, it's not my fault if someone plans poorly. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Like,
I mean, it's such a clear, like, you're just speaking, you're so clearly having a compassionate boundary, right? Like, you are knowing the line. You're knowing the line. It's not your responsibility for someone else's choices or poor decision making.
But it also takes years to get to that point. I genuinely believe that, because if you were to talk to me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said that answer to you. I think
you feel like you need to get, like, this is a conversation I was having with one of Michelle Truitt. I'm sure you know Michelle. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She and I were talking yesterday. We went for a walk yesterday, and we were talking, like, you need to almost go to the extreme for you to know what your, like, she says baseline, I say your sweet spot is. Like, if you never always gave to the point of depletion, you wouldn't know what it felt like to not. Like, you almost have to go there so that you feel like, no, actually this feels pretty good, versus never giving anything. You just need to be do you agree with that?
100%. Yeah. And it's great now that with our team that we have at Compassion, my friend who works right next to me, she'll say to me, no, I'll take care of that. You don't worry about that. It'll be done. Right down to our delivery guys who will say, don't worry about that. We know how busy you are. We will get it done, and we will get it done to the best of our abilities. So I think that kind of rolls into, how do you lead, a heart-centered team, right? You want your team to be on the same path as you, that you want them to really, lead in that way as well, because they're representing, Compassion, they're representing Bargain Grocer. And I think that once you see that from the top down, all of a sudden you feel like, I'm a part of this. Like, this is something that I can do. Here's my piece to this puzzle that I am going to, give back to our community with.
By you embodying having those boundaries, you are modeling for your staff. You're modeling for your team. And it's not about being so perfect as a leader, but it is about practicing what you preach. So you could say to them, you don't have to go give yourself. You don't have to give to depletion. And then you could be giving to depletion, and it's just like parenting in a way. It's parallel, right? So they could be like, wait, she's saying this, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, why is he or she giving to depletion? I told them they didn't have to. Well, am I practicing that? So I love hearing that you're practicing it. It's not surprising that you're humble enough to admit that it takes years to get there. I think anybody who is heart-centered knows that that's a strength that they have to build, because your instinct is to give. So you have to just be able to receive. I won't even say take, but just to receive, and to be able to pause yourself, and to also realize that in the end, you pausing, you checking in, you being thoughtful about, it sounds like a lot of yours is introspective in regards to like, how is this going to affect so-and-so and so-and-so. You in the end are benefiting your team, your family, our community, because you're able to give your best self to us versus your depleted self.
I used to, so before I did this, I was a substance abuse counselor. And so I taught boundary classes, right? I would teach it, I'd never practice it. And, you know, I'm serious. Like it's really taken years. And, you know, we would always say, I would do this group for parents, you know, and I would say to the parents, when you get on a plane, what is the first thing that they teach you? What is one of the first safety rules? If this plane loses oxygen, what happens? You put it on who first? Yourself, right? And then you put it on your child or your companion, because you're not going to be able to get 2 rows behind you before you pass out. But it took me, when I tell you years, it took me years to really, you know, practice what I preached.
And I can take everybody years. And I think that as soon as you think you get it down, there's a stronger situation that comes up that your boundary has to be even more just kind of shifted or flexible, kind of like, okay, I thought I had it down. I don't know if you ever get it down. I think that it's when you die. I think that there's constant. So fortunately you have a pulse and you realize that, and that's when the boundaries just keep on strengthening. You just keep, but I do think that you probably get a good feel for it. You know what I mean? Like you probably get like, okay, it makes it a little easier to
it's
say
a work in progress. Yeah.
It's a work in progress for sure. Love the roses. Did you guys just have an anniversary?
Nope, you have to come down to Bargain Grocer because we get in the best flowers almost every week.
How is this not part? So this is absolutely, I'm so glad that I saw those flowers because no one would know that.
No, and let me tell you, this is really sweet. So you never know, like the little things, you know, make the biggest difference, right? So sometimes I'll go over to the store. I always instruct our staff too, that if you see somebody who's having a bad day, give them a bouquet of flowers, you know, but I was at the checkout last year. It had to be like around Thanksgiving time. And, you know, I always go over there sometimes like on a Friday night and I'll just clean or I'll bag. And this woman said, I love coming in here because this is the only place where I can treat myself. You know, she goes, and I'm on a very limited budget. She goes, but I love being able to come in here and get roses or daisies or whatever you have that week, tulips. And so I thought that was really special, you know, that's something that would just, you know, make somebody's week or day.
So Rachel, we constantly are hearing all of these things that COVID has done to us, and we can get together and have like a party about anti-COVID for sure. But I'm wondering if you could share one thing that COVID has done for you.
I think simplified things. We've had to go back to the simplicity of basically everything. I was thinking about it this year. I've never spent so much time, you know, I've always worked, but I've never spent so much time at home with my kids because I've been working since my kids were, you know, 5 weeks old. And so this year, and just watching them grow, my kids are all at that age where they just have sprouted up too. My oldest son is taller than me. So that's been really great. And just simple things like cooking. Like I think a lot of people would say that, you know, recipes that I've always been wanting to make, you know, I've been able to do and you know, get down pat. So that's something I'm thankful for.
When people want to learn more about the Compassion Coalition, where can they go?
So you can go to distributehope.org. We also have our Facebook page. So it's Bargain Grocery or Compassion Coalition on both Facebook and Instagram.
Super easy. I love it.
But
thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, the entire team that extends out to the drivers of the forklifts and everybody for everything that they're doing to just continue to do, just to make the mission of the Compassion Coalition thrive and be alive and well. It's such incredible work. And I'm so proud to say you guys are part of our community.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.